overall, the items hit hardest by rising prices are food, shelter, and gasoline. So you shouldn't be affected as long as you don't eat anything, be anywhere, or go anyplace. Now today, is this just today?
And Putin, in many ways, made sure they won't come back. His dream of restoring Russia to world superpower status was cut short by him. So, option one, they could just accept being second fiddle to China and join an alliance with China at the center rather than Russia. China being the economic and military superpower, and China protecting Russia. I don't know that their nationalism is going to allow them to do that. In the big game, that's actually the smart move. But Russian nationalism is something else. There's actually nothing wrong with being the UK in NATO. Okay? And that's what they would be. But Russia feels it has to be the US. It has to be the military force of the alliance. And that's just not going to be the case anytime soon. So, another option, and when I say this one, I want to be super clear about the way I say it. I am not talking about the US doing this or the West doing this. I am talking about Russians doing this. The penalties and the fallout associated with Putin's decision would weigh less heavily on Russia if Russia decided to shake the rat from off its neck and no longer have Putin and his cronies in charge. That would put them in a situation where they could start to modernize and start to become that world power again. A third option, a little bit of an unconventional one, they could stop looking to Europe and look south. Turn their imperialist ambitions on the former Soviet republics on the southern side of their borders. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying it's an option for them. And if they were to do that, they might be able to reassert themselves on the world stage. And then there's the fourth option, the one that I actually think is most likely, sadly, and that's that they adopt an isolationist stance and just kind of accept that the people on the bottom in that country are going to be in worse and worse conditions, while the people at the top, they'll still be all right, but they adopt that isolationist stance, bide their time, wait for a moment when they can reemerge, and they basically become North Korea. Those are the four futures that Russians have to choose from. I would hope that they realize that their current geopolitical strategy is something out of the 1900s, the early 1900s. I'm going to talk about today. There are a number of things that factor into this. A whole lot of them are directly related to the miscalculation that Russia engaged in when it decided to invade Ukraine. That's lost. On the geopolitical scene, that's lost. Now, even if you're somebody who believes that Russia is going to pull a rabbit out of their hat and take the country and then somehow manage to hold it, remember, taking and holding aren't the same thing. Even if you're somebody who believes that's going to happen, on the geopolitical scene, the big game, that war was already lost. It displayed Russian military weakness. It displayed, it made it very clear that Russia's military power is a lot less than what it was perceived to be, pushing them to do so. So that weakens Russia's stance in Europe. Every country that aligns more closely with NATO undermines Russia in that big game. It created economic and diplomatic penalties that will last a really, really long time. Russia's going to be suffering from this decision for a while. It also undermined Putin's desire to reassert Russia to glory like the USSR. It really destroyed that dream. There's not a lot of countries that are going to look to Russia to protect it from NATO when it's very clear that Russia can't stand up to NATO. It undermined that idea of Russia having satellites again. And then the fifth one, somebody's going to say that it's early to call this, and it is. But I think it's going to happen. I believe that this is actually hastening Europe's switch away from dirty energy, which hurts the Russian economy. It's early for that, I'll admit that, but I think that's going to happen. Okay, so that is all direct fallout from Putin's decision to invade Ukraine. Then there are issues that existed prior to that. The first being a lot of income inequality in Russia. That's always bad for a country. The West should pay attention to that. There's a massive amount of corruption, which is in large part what led to what we saw in Ukraine. They have bad demographics. Their population is shrinking. It's not growing. Their population is getting smaller. Was cut short by him. So, option one, they could just accept being second fiddle to China, join an alliance with China at the center rather than Russia. China being the economic and military superpower, and China protecting Russia. I don't know that their nationalism is going to allow them to do that. In the big game, that's actually the smart move. But Russian nationalism is something else. There's actually nothing wrong with being the UK in NATO. And that's what they would be. But Russia feels it has to be the US. It has to be the military force of the alliance. And that's just not going to be the case anytime soon. I am talking about Russia.
By Noah Surfhouse. Completes a doubleheader in Portugal. We wrap up a massive QS season. Lots of talking
and the
points.
fallout associated with Putin's decision
Some insights into breaking
would
all
weigh
down
less
once
heavily
again.
on Russia
Yeah.
if Russia decided to shake the rat from off its neck
Got in, got out.
and no longer have Putin and his cronies in
It's a
charge.
lovely part of the world where we've got waves, we've got some
That would put them in a situation where they can start to modernize
Quite big. It's been massive. I don't know.
and start to become that
read
more
the size of it. You said it's lumbering peaks, probably 10, 12, 15 foot, whatever.
third
So
option.
massive. So too big for the
Yeah, a little bit of an unconventional one. They could stop looking to Europe.
Crunch
and
time for our qualifying season. What's the qualifying season all about? What
Turn
are we trying to
their
do? It's all about
and that's that they adopt an isolationist force and just kind of accept that the people on the bottom are going to be in worse and worse conditions while the people at the top they'll still be all right. But they adopt that isolation stance, bide their time, wait for a war to emerge, and they basically those are the four futures Russians have to choose from. I would hope that they realize that their current political strategy is something out of the early dreams, and it just doesn't fit in today's world. But I haven't seen any signs that that's what they're going to do. Russia has to accept at this point, for at least the next 20 or 30 years, they're not going to be the military side of the lines. They aren't going to be one of the poles in the multipolar world that's established. They'll always be overshadowed by China. NATO is not going to look at Russia. Russia accepts this reality, the better it's going to be for everyone. Russians more stable the world will become, the less fighting there will be, the sooner Russia can attempt to modernize the atmosphere. This fight that it picked has set Russia back on the geopolitical stage of lines, and they're going to end up paying for it for a very long time. And it is one of